Commissioner, if you're good, let's dive in because we want to be respectful of your time.
Right.
I think a good place to start and a timely place to start would be this. Ag Week has just begun.
Yep.
What does Ag Week and agriculture mean to Georgia?
So, well, first off, agriculture to Georgia, agriculture is our state's #1 industry. It's almost $91.5 billion economic engine for our state. It is truly the backbone of our state economy. Almost over 380,000 Georgians are employed or involved in agriculture. It's about 1 in 7. And so a large part of our sector is involved in the agricultural economy in some way. And it's an important part of who we are, right? Georgia is a significant player, not only in our communities all across Georgia, rural or urban. Agriculture impacts every Georgian every day, and I like to talk about how we at the Department of Agriculture do the same. Our agency impacts every Georgian every day, and the role that we play in our communities, but also domestically and globally and around the world. We're a significant player in a lot of different commodity markets. And so Ag Week gives us that opportunity to celebrate our state's #1 industry, to celebrate agriculture and bring attention to an industry that a lot of times most folks don't think about when they go to the grocery store or they send their kids to school whenever they're eating lunchroom meals or when they're sitting down at that restaurant because it had to start somewhere.
Something that we hear from farmers a lot is that they feel like many people don't realize how much agriculture touched their daily lives. When you go to Kroger, when you go to the shopping market and you go and get groceries, do you get the sense that a lot of people aren't thinking about where that food initially comes from?
I think most Americans don't think about where their food comes from a lot of times. And a lot of that is because of the success of American agriculture, Georgia farmers, American farmers, because in America, we enjoy the safest, most abundant, cheapest food supply in the world. And, when Americans and Georgians go to the grocery store, what they're looking for is there, it's available. And I think that has caused maybe some of that, that where people have become used to having what they want when they need it or when they want it. And a lot of times because of that, the folks that help ensure that it got there are kind of an afterthought. And I think in that though, I think Americans and Georgians at the same time need to understand how critical agriculture is. Agriculture is national security. It's a true component of our nation's ability to protect itself. And the folks that work in agriculture that provide the food, the fiber, the shelter that we rely on, whether it's the food we eat, the shelter in that forestry and the timber products that help build our house, or the fiber that helps produce the clothes that we wear, all of that is critical to our nation being able to be successful. A nation that can't feed itself can't sustain itself, and I think that's why it's important that we tell our story. And that's part of what, when I come in as Commissioner of Agriculture, I guess now a little over 2 years ago, one of the things I told our staff was, we got to do a better job of telling our story, not only of the department and the work that we do every day and the role we play in every Georgian's life, but also help tell the story of agriculture and the role that our farmers, farm families, ranchers, and producers play in ensuring that that food supply, that chain is kept intact and that food is able to be put on tables all across our great state. And so it's kind of that 98-2 rule, right? Less than 2% of America is involved in production agriculture. And 98% of Americans are not necessarily involved in those operations. And a lot of times they become removed from the farm, in some cases, many generations removed from the farm. And I think it's imperative that we tell that story, use things like Ag Week to ensure that Georgians understand the role that farmers and farm families, ranchers and producers play in making sure that the food that they enjoy, the houses and the clothes that they like to wear, that it had to start somewhere, and that there's a story behind it all, and those are stories worth telling. Our farmers have phenomenal stories to tell, And that's why we encourage people to go to their farms and participate in agritourism and go to these operations. And we do a lot of that through the Department of Agriculture.
And that's been growing in Georgia too over the recent years. I want to bring to your attention one thing you I think pretty aptly pointed out. A lot of people don't think about this very often when they go to the grocery store, but people do pay attention when they start to see prices change, particularly when prices go up. That starts to get attention. No surprise where I'm going with this. Egg prices have been front of mind for a lot of Americans and a lot of Georgians in recent months. They have been going up in recent months. Can Georgians expect egg prices to start falling anytime soon now?
So I think on egg prices, this is a perfect example of where the consumer, I think, gets a realization that things that happen at the farm level have a true impact on the supply chain. And so what we've dealt with high-path avian influenza across the country has had a direct impact on the food supply chain and on that supply-demand curve, as well as what's happening at the grocery store and the prices that consumers are seeing. I think those are opportunities where, I think we have a chance to show that what happens on the farm truly does impact your life every single day, and I think egg prices have shown that, right? That said, when it comes to egg prices, high-path avian influenza has directly impacted that across the country. We've seen over 770 flocks impacted, commercial flocks, over 166 million birds impacted nationwide just in the last 2 years. The thing about Georgia, though, is we've done a really good job with biosecurity, and our team here at the department working with industry. Of those over 700 flocks, only 3 of them have been in Georgia. Of the over 166 million birds impacted, only about 205,000 have been impacted in Georgia. And I think our team has done a really good job. We're the #1 poultry state in the country, yet we have some of the least significant impacts. And look, we're not resting on that. Our guard is not let down. Matter of fact, we're stepping up our game. We had the first commercial detection in a flock a couple of weeks ago here in Georgia. And we acted quickly on that to address that, to ensure that we were able to contain and eradicate HPAI from our state, which we have, and now we're HPAI free again.
No bird flu in Georgia.
No bird flu in Georgia as I speak right now.
But it's something that sounds like you're still paying close attention to.
We're paying very close attention to it, right? Because we constantly are testing our commercial flocks every day. Our work with the poultry lab here in Georgia, our work with our team at the Department of Agriculture, that is something we work on constantly to ensure that we address this issue so that our poultry industry isn't impacted. Poultry in Georgia makes up over 1/3 of our agricultural sector is tied to poultry alone. And it's important that we address that because of the significance it has on our state economy. And so our team has done a really good job in that. But even with that, our state has not been immune to the crisis that's happened across the country when it comes to avian influenza. Egg prices are an example of that. But just in the last 2 weeks, though, we've seen egg prices drop by about $2, and I think we're going to continue to see that as we roll into summer over the next couple of months. Secretary Rollins has rolled out a plan to tackle and address AI nationwide head-on, including significant investments in certain areas. And I think that plan is starting to work. I think we're seeing the results of that already with the reduction in egg prices, and we expect them to continue to fall as we work to address HPAI nationwide. And we do our job in Georgia to keep our guard up and ensure that we don't have that issue here anymore.
So to a consumer who is shopping every week and they're worried about these prices, it sounds like your message to them would be, you expect those prices to come back down.
Yep. So, to sum it up quickly, we've already seen over the last 2 weeks or so, egg prices have dropped already. We do expect that to normalize and continue over the next couple of weeks, next couple of months. And a lot of that is due to, I think, the efforts that are being put into addressing HPAI nationwide and including the efforts we're doing here in the state of Georgia. And we're going to continue to do that to ensure that we protect our poultry industry and at the same time protect the consumer, right? because we got to ensure that none of that, one, enters the food supply chain, which in Georgia we can proudly say that HPAI has never entered the food supply chain in our state, and two, work to ensure the consumer can have affordable food on the shelf. And all of that works in concert with each other, and we're working to do just that every single day.
Let's talk about another thing that impacts Georgia farmers, and that's the weather.
Yep.
And we have unfortunately seen a series of devastating storms impact Georgia's farmers.
Yep.
Hurricane Helene is the most recent, but also Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Michael, or others that have had serious impacts on farmers across our state. To a farmer who might be watching this and thinking, I need some help, what would your message to them be?
You're right. We've had a lot of issues over the last couple of years when it comes to weather. You named hurricanes, but we've also had freezes. We've had hailstorms. All of those in some cases impact agriculture. The thing about agriculture is you can do everything right. You can plant on time, you can work to harvest on time, feed on time, but you could still lose everything overnight due to one of these devastating events. The most recent being Hurricane Helene, as you mentioned. A lot of our farmers and farm families are still reeling from that. They're still hurting, and there's a lot to be done to help them get back on their feet and ensure that they're able to continue to be successful. We're committed to that. I think on the state level, we've shown we're committed to that. This past fall, with the help of the governor, the speaker, the lieutenant governor, we were able to convene and put together $100 million to put towards forestry and agriculture through low interest loans and cleanup grant programs for forestry specifically, and the low interest loans for agriculture. Working with the legislature, we were able to add another $185 million to that in the amended budget. So a total of a $285 million package that Georgia has put together to help agriculture and the forestry communities get back on their feet. We're continuing to work with our partners on the federal level to get that federal disaster aid out as quickly as possible. With our meeting that we had just recently with Secretary Rollins, they are committing to get that economic aid out by the deadline. I believe it's March 21st. And then the other natural disaster assistance that's included in that package there soon after. And another thing we did on the state level, which I think goes to show the commitment we have, is that the department, we spearheaded a private fundraising effort through what we call the Weathered But Strong program, where we raised private dollars to support those farm families impacted. Almost $1.8 million raised has already been distributed to almost 1,000 farm families impacted by Hurricane Helene. And, so I think the key message here is we know that our farm families are still hurting, but we are committed to seeing them through. We are committed to getting them back on their feet. We are committing to ensure Georgia agriculture continues to be successful, not only for their operation and their family farm, but for our state's consumers and our industry and our economy as well.
I know another thing that a lot of farmers, not just in Georgia, but around the country, are paying close attention to right now are tariffs. President Donald Trump is now in office, and he has moved to institute a series of tariffs on close trading partners like Canada, China, and Mexico. A recent February Purdue University CME Group poll found that 47% of responding farmers felt that it was likely or very likely that U.S. agriculture is at risk of a trade war that results in a significant decrease in U.S. agricultural exports. Do you share those worries?
I think when it comes to trade and trade policies, right, I think in America the first thing you got to really look at is the fact that our farmers and farm families compete on an unlevel playing field. American producers don't compete on the same playing field that other farmers do around the world. When you look at things like labor, when you look at things like equipment availability, there's equipment that you can't buy in the United States because it's been deemed not appropriate for usage, but you can buy that same equipment in another country and they can use it every day, and it costs them less because it's a much less expensive to buy it because it doesn't have certain types of equipment on it. When you look at food safety standards that we utilize in the United States and you compare that to what they do in other countries, You know, in America, our farmers are on an unlevel playing field really across all commodities. And so when you look at trying to find a way to level the playing field, I think it's critical that we work toward those goals of ensuring that our American producers can be put on a level playing field when we compete against those nations that are competing with our producers right here at home. Another thing I think that's critical in this conversation is when you look at our agricultural trade deficit is at the highest it has ever been in our nation's history. The ag trade deficit in the United States is estimated to be over $50 billion by the end of this year. That means we're importing more food than we're able to produce for ourselves, which means the American producer is being put at a disadvantage because we're bringing in food from other countries that don't abide by the same rules that they have to abide by. Whenever President Trump left office 4 years ago, our trade deficit was basically neutral. And now we have almost a $50 billion trade deficit over the last 4 years. That's putting America in a position where we don't need to be as a nation when it comes to our nation's national security. That said, leveling that playing field is critical in ensuring that our farmers and farm families can be successful. Are there certain areas in agriculture where there could be retaliatory tariffs? There are, and we're not glossing over that at all. I know during the first Trump administration, we had a lot of conversation about this. And as you know, Secretary Sonny Perdue was our secretary at the time. And we worked really closely with them to address those issues. And during the first Trump administration, they did. They ensured that those farm families that were impacted by those retaliatory tariffs were addressed and they were taken care of to ensure that their family farms were not impacted and that the blow from those tariffs were softened. We're working to do the exact same thing this time. In those conversations with the Trump administration, with Secretary Rollins, we actually talked about this last week while she was in town. We want to ensure that our farm families can continue to be successful. So any retaliatory tariffs that we may see that may impact American agriculture, we're going to work to address those and work with the Trump administration to ensure that that blow is softened and we can ensure that they continue to be successful. But another part of that is our work that we do through the department every day in ensuring that our farmers have markets, other export markets, and growing those export markets around the world in areas where we may not see those retaliatory tariffs. An example of that is the trip that I took with our team last year to India, specifically to help sell Georgia pecans to the India market. It is a brand new market for us. It is a wide open opportunity. And I was just told last week that one of our first companies was able to ink a deal with an Indian company to sell Georgia pecans in India, which was a result of the trade trip we took last year. So continuing to build on those markets is going to be critical in ensuring that our producers are as successful as possible and are not impacted impacted in the least way possible. But at the same time, we also have producers that this is going to help because of the commodities that they grow and help us ensure that we continue to allow American agriculture to stay strong, Georgia agriculture to stay strong, and our producers to continue to be successful, and we can do that.
You've been very generous with your time. I want to end here and just ask you one last question because there's always so much we could talk about.
Oh, there is a lot we could talk about.
So we'll have to do it again. But I want to end here. We're obviously just coming out of a presidential election year. You've been in state politics for some time yourself. You've been in the state of Georgia, and your family has been in the state of Georgia for a long time. Yeah. I know I saw you at a handful of rallies for President Donald Trump as he was stumping here in Georgia. You're the ag commissioner now. What does your political future look like in Georgia?
Look, I've had a very blessed career. My family has been very blessed. I've been very blessed, not only to grow up and live in the great state of Georgia. You know, our family, as you mentioned, we've been here. Our family has been in the state of Georgia since before the Revolutionary War. And we've been in the same vicinity where I grew up since the early 1800s. And it's been awesome to grow up on the family farm that my grandfather, my great-grandfather, my great-grandfather operated and still get to operate today. And because of all of that, growing up on that family farm, you know, I learned a lot of things. One of those that I like to talk about is farm values. Farm values are things like integrity and honesty and being able to address issues head on. And I like to joke with folks that if we just had elected officials with farm values from City Hall to the White House, our nation would be in a lot better place. And you know, when I run for the state Senate at such a early age, the youngest elected state senator in the history of our state, from what I understand, my knowledge, there were only 2 others that were elected at my age at that time, which was former Senator former Senator and soon-to-be Governor Roy Barnes, and then there was a state senator from down in my neck of the woods as well that was elected at that same age. But you know, I spent a decade in the state Senate serving South Central and Southeast Georgia, working to ensure that that the issues that impacted rural Georgia were taken on head on, and I enjoyed doing that. And then you know, the opportunity to run for Commissioner of Agriculture presented itself, and because of my passion in this industry and the fact that agriculture has allowed me to get to where I am today, gave me an opportunity to really look at that, and we did. And so here we are, a little over 2 years into this office. I'm enjoying the opportunity I get to represent our farmers, farm families, ranchers, and producers, but also our consumers every single day, in protecting this industry and protecting everyone to ensure that our state continues to be successful. And it's been a remarkable opportunity to serve our state in that capacity, and I look forward to the ways, whatever way I can best continue to serve our state moving forward. I look forward to doing just that. And I think, you know, our state is in a really remarkable place. We've had great leadership over the last few years that has allowed our state to be successful. I'm just proud to be a part of that team that has allowed Georgia to be successful, and I look forward to continuing to be a part of that team in moving forward and allowing our state to continue to thrive and it be the best place to live, work, worship, and raise a family.
You talk about farm values. Do you think Georgia and the country would be in a better place if some more of those farm values were represented in Congress, either the United States House of Representatives or the Senate?
Well, when I say from some City Hall to the White House, I guess that's kind of what I mean, right? Regardless of the elected office, you know, those farm values are critical, and that's what our farm families, when you grow up in that atmosphere, those are the things you learn, and you're taught to address a lot of different issues and in ways that allow you and your farm family to be successful. That's the reason we have farm family operations that have been generational, because those values have been instilled in them from generation to generation. And but if we took, you know, when I was campaigning for ag commissioner, I had this slogan, which I still use today, is sometimes it takes a farmer. And I would argue that sometimes it does just take a farmer. And those farm values that they're instilled in, that work ethic that they have to address the issues head on that we're dealing with every single day. And so regardless of the elected office, I would argue that those farm values are critical to allowing our nation to continue to be successful. And if the individuals in those elected positions had those values, I think we would definitely continue to be better off as a nation and continue to be successful every single day.
Commissioner, I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.
Yes, sir. Thank you.